we're talking about style because this show, Spring Cleaning, is all about kind of showing work that might be off style or off brand, older or experimental, or maybe it does encompass your style and it's been a shift for you to get to this place.
In a word or two, which is, really difficult to describe, I know, in a word or two, what is your style and art practice approach, and who wants to start?
So at this moment in time, I'm relating a lot to surrealistic qualities as well as components from the pop art movement. And I would say that with any style, I think it's constantly evolving. I feel like everyone can agree. I think that when I'm working on different bodies of work, my interests evolve, my skill sets evolve. So, but if I were to, describe it to someone who hadn't seen it, those are the two areas that I would touch on.
Here we are at Tali's piece, Through the Bridge. So Tali, I don't know if you have anything to say about this piece or some of the other oil paintings that you have in the show as it relates to your style or not.
Sure. So I made Through the Bridge actually in honor of my friend that passed away. And I'm so into like puns and different meanings. And I think when we were talking about things or people that inspire us that aren't related to art or a medium necessarily. So Patti Smith wrote this book, Just Kids, which I just absolutely love. And I love that, she is a writer and can write all of these poems and these things. And she just really inspired me in that sense. And so with this painting and with all of the things that I've carried with me as an artist, I always kind of go back to that. And a lot of my work, the titling of it is really important to me. And there are all these different innuendos within, and kind of, Through the Bridge for me is that like crossing over into the unknown. And that's how I felt about it with my friend who had passed very young. And this was actually, kind of me driving through a bridge to get to the service to honor him. So the colors are really bright and they're really almost offensive in comparison to some of the other work that I have where it's more of a darker, more romantic painting. And this I would say is within the style that I had been painting in, which I would consider like a neon impressionism, neon impressionistic style. And it's definitely very different than what I'm doing now, which is like photo assemblage, collage, totally different. Also in the sense that it's very much so myself, and the artwork that I'm making now, while it does relate to me, it's also important that it relates to others on a personal level, or that it connects to others, or that I'm talking about something that's much bigger than just a personal experience. So that's where I'm at now. But I think with styles, as we mentioned before, that's something that's ever evolving.
Totally. I see the pun thing though now in your work a lot. And it's interesting that it was still there, even though the work was so different when you were working in this way.
Yeah, a lot of the work when I do paintings, collage, not so much. It's more of an idea or a thought. But with my paintings, I would write a poem before making the painting, and I never really showed that to anyone or shared it in relation to the painting. It hasn't been as important. But to get to the thought process to create was kind of like turning that on by sitting down and writing out my thoughts about it.
I'm really interested in hybrids and kind of combining unlike things, whether I'm talking about found material assemblage or just combining two different things on paper in drawing. So I think surrealism is a big inspiration for my style or my approach. And then otherwise, definitely my style is like hybrid, assemblage, Bruce Connery kind of stuff. So yeah. So this is my piece, one of my pieces in the show called Window. And this would be representative of some of my assemblage recycled work, and it's a light piece, so it does light up inside. And I guess this is kind of, it's funny because this is pretty much like the style that I was trying so hard to embody and to be as I kind of more seriously became a working artist, a practicing artist. I wanted to stay in sculpture. I was always framing my work by working with found materials. And I think only now, actually, I'm kind of stepping out of this and giving myself freedom to say, I don't always have to work with found material, even though I was very inspired, influenced by kind of an environmental frame of my work. I don't always have to work in sculpture. I can work on pen and paper. So in some ways, this is very much my style, and was also part of that series I was talking about that was all about kind of a sterile Americanness and isolation. So it had a very specific aesthetic, but material wise and kind of how I combine and how I make this was it. And now I'm trying to give myself permission to work in different ways and kind of find that larger definition for myself.
Yeah, I would also describe my style as like experimental and a hybrid of a bunch of different things. In my work, it's really dependent on the medium that I'm working with. But I think my practice is very much therapeutic, and I lean into artwork as a form of therapy to cope with my big feelings and to, I think, clear out ideas that I wasn't aware of before working with the material. Yeah, so this started off as an analog collage I was participating in the Februage challenge, and this prompt was for joy. So I wasn't really quite sure how to approach it, but then I saw this beautiful portrait of this smiling woman, and I wanted to recreate the aura that I sense from her and the joy that she's expressing. And then I scanned it onto Photoshop, and I added all of the flowers on the bottom to just to balance it out a little bit. And I thought that this work would go really well with the show because to me, it looks like she's blossoming. It looks like she's in the middle of spring. And I thought that the show title was really appropriate for this work. But it's a new work. I made it in February.
For me, I guess my art is pretty much just, it's an expression of chaos. I myself am a very chaotic person, and the way I approach art creation and my art style is therefore also chaos, entropy, decay, stuff like that. It's
Purple Rain. I love this piece. I don't know if you have anything to say about this work as it relates to your style or generally, or the pieces you have in the show.
I just watched Purple Rain like a few hours ago. So I love this.
Synchronicity.
it's one of the best songs on the light station that they will always put on when you're working retail. You know the one that just
Light FM 106.7.
yeah.
Classic.
Classic stuff.
Yeah, it's there's some stuff where you're like, oh heck yeah, that's a jam. But yeah, so I finished that one in late 2019, and it was like one of the first like big pieces I made. And then I didn't even really get a chance to show it off because COVID happened. And it was stuck in a basement in Chinatown for months, and I didn't get to photograph it. I didn't post it. I didn't do anything with it, but I was like really proud of it. I liked it. And that's kind of how that one ended up in the show. I love it, but it was, I think it was one of the last ones that I painted that year. It was one of the last gateways. And even though it was really good in my opinion, and it just never went anywhere.
Art is all of your things combined, because there's a little bit of everything in there, the trippy, the surreal, in tandem with the absurd, therapeutic. So it seems like we're all coming from similar places, but I don't know. I feel like how long have you guys been artists? Like, what is your...
I've definitely been making art since I was a kid. I think a lot of us have, but when you actually officially become an artist, you know, when I put it in my resume, how long has Regina Viqueira Studio existed, is probably when I declared I was an art major. So that might be like about a decade or so, but I would say I've always been an artist. And I think so many of us just are artists, and just maybe that time you decide it's your career could be a different marking, a different anniversary there.
I think since I came into being, I would say is when I became an artist. And I feel like I said this, we had another artist talk, you and I, Regina, but you know, every question in art is subjective, because everything in art can kind of be subjective. It's not mathematical in the way that other careers are, where it's like, you know, this happens, that happens, and this is how it is. So I think that, you know, for me, I've always been creating. I think when you start to create art as a way to monetize something, I don't think that that makes you any more or less of an artist, in my opinion. I think that there are a ton of artists out there that choose not to share their work and use it as a form of therapy, as everyone or a couple people here have said. And I think that there are artists that, you know, talking about the pop art movement, are all about consumerism and commenting on that and about selling work. And I think that there's a balance between those two, and whatever end of the spectrum it is, I think that you're an artist, you're an artist. So,
I mean, my family really pushed for me as a child to become an artist. I had like art classes, but I hated drawing people, and I hated drawing real things. And that left me feeling like I was a bad artist for many years, because I couldn't really emulate a realistic style, or or even like a, whatever the popular style was, like all those anime drawings and stuff like that. I just couldn't do it. So for years I was like, well, I'm not good at making art, but at the same time I was doing graphic design. I was doing writing. I was a freelance writer for many years, and now I'm working in e-commerce and sales. But also, when I finally got the idea that it has to be real for it to be art out of my head, I think something kind of clicked. But I mean, it's hard to say, like, what do we call art? Because like graphic design, some would say is art, some would say it's not art. I don't know. Regina, can I pet your cat?
The cats, of course, want to come hang.
that is your cat, right? That's
it. Is.
Okay.
Bye.
Cat, when owner is doing something, I must be the center of attention.
I react that way to cats too. No, I was thinking about how you were saying that your family pushed you into art making, and I think that's very curious, because in my life it was the opposite. My parents emigrated from South and Central America, so that was like way off their radar to create art for the sake of creating art. So I was exposed to art making through the public schooling system. And it was when I was in high school that I was pushed by my art teacher to even fathom being an artist professionally. And when I got into school, I learned about the theory, and that was beautiful. And then after graduating, it was such a different experience learning about like the marketing and business side of being an artist. And that completely like killed it for me, having to monetize my work and no longer making work for the sake of making work. And so for me, it's been a really interesting balance between the two, keeping myself happy while also hopefully drawing in some income from this talent and skill that I've been very privileged and fortunate to work with.
I can kind of relate to both of these two sides of this kind of thing. Because like I grew up in a household where my parents were like city civil workers, so I wasn't pushed into arts, which is why I didn't do art really. Like I studied English because I like books, and I knew I'd be a teacher because that's like what I do to make money in capitalism. Like I enjoy books, let me be in education. And like the art that I do, I guess, is like, you know, stand-up comedy. But in one sense, I never want to make it as a stand-up comedian. I don't want to be a famous comedian. So I don't have to, you know, commodify myself or try to do anything to become famous because I don't want to. But like I take my personal brand really seriously. So like I don't care about making money off my name, but like I want my name to be a very certain way in society. And like, so I can see both sides where